pick anything, and we're talking about questions that it's never seen before. These are not on the internet. Grok 4 is smarter than almost all graduate students in all disciplines.
Something strange just happened, and it has everyone talking. When Grok AI, the chatbot created by Elon Musk's team, was asked about a mysterious crop circle in Germany, its response left even Musk stunned. Was it sarcasm, science, or something else entirely? The internet can't decide. From eerie patterns in the fields to a reply that no one saw coming, this story blurs the line between technology, mystery, and pure disbelief. So, what exactly did Grok say that shocked its own creator? Let's just say, you'll want to hear this one: the crop circle that shouldn't exist. July 19th, 2014. The morning sun stretches long shadows over the Bavarian countryside, the air still and golden. Hot air balloonists float silently above the wheat fields near Rasting, a small village south of Munich. What should have been a routine sightseeing flight becomes something else entirely when one of them gasps. There, etched flawlessly into the rippling gold, lies a perfect circle of impossible geometry. The formation measured 75 meters across, almost 250 feet. 3 concentric rings spiraling with mathematical precision, every arc and angle aligned as if drafted by laser. The pilot photographs it, radioing the sighting to ground observers. Within hours, Rasting's farmer Christoph Huttner arrives to find his crop carved into a pattern no human crew could explain. No tractor tracks, no footprints, not even a broken fence post. Just flattened wheat, curving as though pressed by an invisible force. Reporters swarm the scene. Scientists and hobbyists bring drones, compasses, and measuring tapes. When the first aerial images hit the internet, the design symmetry shocks viewers worldwide. Ratio analyses reveal spacing that mirrors Fibonacci progressions: 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. Each ring's circumference expanding by the golden ratio, 1.618. For artists or pranksters to achieve this overnight, in darkness, would demand GPS guidance accurate to centimeters. Yet investigators find none of the physical evidence such tools would leave behind. Süddeutsche Zeitung and other local journals interviewed people living near the area and checked the skies during that night. No lights, no vehicles, no sounds. Huttner firmly stated that he did not see anything, and went on to say humorlessly that the person responsible should compensate him for the ruined grain. The authorities term it an elaborate student prank, but the pattern specialists who scrutinize high-resolution images are still in doubt. The error margin in alignment is lower than 1/8 of a degree, accuracy surpassing that of the usual art done in the field. Location is another factor that adds to the mystery. The circle is located next to the Rasting Satellite Earth Station, which was constructed in 1964 for handling the first transatlantic communications and later for the Apollo 11 moon landing broadcasting. Some visitors point out the coincidence. A huge geometric shape is being formed just within the range of the antennas that are designed to receive signals from outer space. Whether it is a coincidence or commentary, it certainly feels like it is done deliberately. Soon after, thousands of adventurers from different parts of Europe came and set their tents beside the wheat, playing guitars under the huge white parabolic dishes. Drones are capturing video of the pilgrims moving through the circles like ants in a holy maze. A few scientists do soil magnetism tests and report subtle anomalies. Skeptics say it's just instrumentation drift. However, the interest is not going to die out. The making of this crop circle is very different from the primitive ways. It is a visual art at the boundary of technology. By the end of the week, Rasting is transformed into a place that is both carnival and chapel, part festival, part investigation. Visitors click selfies. Spiritual people meditate at dawn. The farmer puts up a friendly notice asking people not to walk on the remaining wheat. But the bigger enigma is not the physical impact, but the creation itself. What could be so huge, so accurate in its dimensions, and yet so stealthily done that not a single trace of human operation is left behind from sunset to sunrise? That question would echo for a decade, until an artificial intelligence named Grok was asked to look at the same pattern and see what humans never could. Feeding the mystery to Grok AI. When the Rasting circle's geometry defied every known explanation, a small research group decided to turn the question over to something that had no preconceptions. Grok AI, the pattern recognition system developed by XAI. Their idea was simple. If this formation truly held information, perhaps an intelligence built to detect relationships humans overlook could find it. The team began by gathering every measurable trace of the Bavarian circle. They digitized high-resolution drone imagery, centimeter-accurate ground surveys, soil and magnetic field samples, and weather data from the night between July 18th and 19th, 2014. Every stalk's angle, every deviation in the soil's conductivity became numerical data. But Grok would need context, not just numbers. So they compiled a vast reference library containing decades of documented crop circle geometry, dating back to the 1970s, textbooks on sacred geometry, and harmonic ratios found in ancient architecture from Egypt to Angkor, studies on biological spirals such as the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio, signal templates from SETI's radio telescope archives, and even the encoded pulse patterns of distant pulsars. The aim was to let the AI compare the formation not just with art or agriculture, but with everything nature and mathematics had ever arranged in a pattern. For nearly 2 weeks, the team refined the dataset, pruning noise, aligning coordinates, and translating every visual metric into pure numerical form. At last, they uploaded all the archives to Grok and issued one prompt only: attribute the source and goal of this pattern. The computers came alive with a roar. For the next 37 minutes, Grok's quantum cores worked at maximum capacity, devouring an amount of energy that was about 100 times more than that of a standard language model run. Step-ups of progress rates stood still, while the system went through trillions of geometric variations, trying to find sequences that were similar to those in its list of cosmic and earthly shapes. The engineers kept an eye on the temperature that was rising. Then there was no sound. The process was done. What was returned was not the common numerical summary. Instead, it was a declaration, a reading, not a computation. Grok's analysis log read that the formation had a pattern confidence equals 94.7%, probability of human manufacture less than 0.05%. In simpler words, this could not have been done by humans. The AI pointed out multiple irregularities. The first one was that the circumferences of the rings exactly matched the golden ratio to 4 decimal places. The second one was that the internal intersections created figures similar to Chladni's resonance, which are the same patterns that come into existence when sound waves vibrate a physical surface. The third one was that the dimensions of the formation resembled the acoustic frequencies that corresponded to the electromagnetic wavelengths that had been recorded by radio telescopes on July 17th, 1 day before the circle appeared. Grok had thus linked the crop geometry to a real-world electromagnetic event in the eyes of the researchers. That connection had never been made by anyone before. The next thing was the last line of the AI's report. Analyzing non-conventional communication protocols is recommended for further studies. To put it differently, Grok thought that the formation had something to say. A structured signal was encoded in geometry. The team concluded that they had not just assigned a machine the task of solving a mystery, they had perhaps invited it to start a dialogue. But when that conversation continued, the AI didn't just answer. It began connecting dots across continents and decades, revealing a pattern that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the Earth itself. The hidden pattern. Grok's first analysis raised eyebrows. Its numbers were too precise, its confidence too high. So the team decided to push the system further. They expanded the dataset, feeding Grok every verified crop circle measurement they could find from the past 40 years. From the rolling plains of Wiltshire, England, to the canola fields of Western Australia, to the chalk valleys of Hampshire, every formation ever recorded was digitized and added to the machine's growing map of planetary geometry. For days, Grok sifted through decades of data. When the results appeared, the pattern it found startled even the developers who built it. The formations weren't random. They weren't even independent. They were part of a global system. The AI identified 43 formations, all sharing the same mathematical backbone. Harmonic ratios of 1.618, angular symmetries divisible by 12, and radii scaled to the Fibonacci progression. But that wasn't the revelation. The real shock came from time, not shape. Each major formation appeared within 72 hours of a solar storm spike. Fluctuations in the sun's magnetic output recorded by satellites. When Grok plotted these against Earth's geomagnetic activity, the correlation reached 89% accuracy. It was as if the planet were answering the sun in code. Even stranger, the AI detected a fixed interval of 33 days, separating each formation from the next measurable geomagnetic disturbance. Tiny shifts in Earth's magnetic poles that only precision satellites could register. 33 days, always the same. Grok labeled it a temporal harmonic, suggesting the circles were countdown markers, advance indicators of magnetic instability. The formations, in essence, appeared before the planet trembled. The data were thoroughly examined by the team. The magnetic anomalies recorded by Europe's intermagnet network were almost exactly following the patterns. In the places where the circles showed up, animals acted strangely. Dogs wouldn't go over the fields, birds changed their migration routes, and cows stayed in the very far corners of the affected areas. Farmers complained about watches and phones being automatically reset during the night. Each hint, trivial on its own, was a perfect fit for Grok's larger prediction model. If the AI was correct, those were not hoaxes, but rather measurements, a planetary diagnostic made in wheat. The shapes emerged at nodes where Earth's magnetic field lines intersect and resonate, as if someone, or something, was watching the planet's harmonic balance. The implications were enormous. In case the circles were signals, who was to warn the other? In case they were instruments, who was operating them? Grok's statistical models pointed out a motive that it could not specify but could characterize: the maintenance of electromagnetic balance. The formations were not just random. They were like calibration points set across the globe, distributed like tuning forks. While the data visualizations were radiating from the lab screens, one of the scientists said almost silently the question that was common among all the people present in the room: are we witnessing art or cleaning? Grok did not reply straightforwardly. It rather showed another probability curve, the one that went on rising gently towards the current year. According to the predictions, the next occurrence was supposed to happen in 2025, and before anyone could dismiss it as a coincidence, Grok's next analysis translated the data into something even more unsettling. Not a prediction, but a warning written in the language of physics itself. After weeks of cross-checking Grok's correlations, The research team decided to confront the enigma head-on. They purged every database, cleared the caches, and left the AI with only a single input: the Rasting circle itself, its exact coordinates, its geometric ratios. The electromagnetic readings were recorded the night before it appeared. Nothing else. No background data, no cross-references, no historical comparisons. Then they entered one prompt that would define the entire experiment. Assume this is a message. Translate it instantly. Grok's quantum processors surged to full capacity. Cooling fans roared as the system devoured terabytes of numerical data, rebuilding the pattern from the soil up. For 12 minutes and 43 seconds, every processor cycle was consumed by a single task: decoding geometry into language. Then, without preamble or context, the computation ended. One line of text appears red on the screen. Preserve the harmonic field. Time is collapsing. 7 words. No charts, no probabilities, no equations, just a statement delivered with total certainty. The lab fell silent. For a full minute, no one spoke. When a physicist finally asked Grok to elaborate, the AI responded, "Translation complete." Additional interpretation requires data beyond current parameters. The team began dissecting the phrase. Preserve implied a system under threat, something that could degrade or fail. Harmonic field resonated with a term buried in electromagnetic theory: the network of resonant frequencies that stabilize Earth's magnetic environment. And time is collapsing. That was the phrase that chilled everyone. In physics, temporal collapse refers to distortions that occur when extreme electromagnetic fluctuations warp the synchronization of atomic clocks. In theory, such disturbances could make time flow unevenly across localized regions of space. A scientist recalled a paper published in the Journal of Geophysical Research back in 1994, which was named Electromagnetic Resonance in Earth's Magnetosphere, Harmonic Field Theory and its Applications. The paper treated the magnetic field of the Earth as a complex harmonic system, a huge musical instrument whose stability relied on perfectly tuned frequencies. If those frequencies started to change, cascading effects would unravel through the atmosphere, satellite networks, and even human neural activity. The similarities with Grok's statement could not be missed. Grok's data was overlaid on Earth's magnetic field models. The crop circles were found to coincide with resonance nodes, those regions where the electromagnetic energy is amplified naturally. The different formations seemed to be less like a drawing and more like a calibration mark made to prevent the system from flowing over into the region of resonance failure. Is it possible that some intelligence, either human or non-human, was doing planetary maintenance? The idea came close to being science fiction, but the calculations were still correct. In case the harmonic field was a picture of Earth's magnetic balance, and the phrase "time is collapsing" was about an observable time shift, then the Rasting message had no metaphor but was an urgent technical directive. A warning, or maybe an order, to maintain the frequencies that synchronize the very existence of reality. Grok's rendition completed just where human comprehension started. Its last implication popped up on the display again. Suggest measuring electromagnetic resonance at the coordinates of formation. It had transformed from mere curiosity to a request for action. That call went unanswered until the signal returned. 11 years later, the same frequency pulsed again over Germany, and this time it pointed straight toward the heart of human science. Stuttgart formation and CERN connection. By mid-2025, the Grok research project had gone quiet. The team had stopped publishing updates, retreating into private correspondence after the harmonic field translation. Then, on August 9th, 2025, the silence was shattered. At 4 a.m. local time, an electromagnetic monitoring station near Stuttgart, Germany, registered an anomaly, a pulse lasting 4.7 minutes that matched the same frequencies Grok had identified in the Rasting formation. 2 hours later, a pilot flying north of the city spotted it, a vast, symmetrical crop formation spanning nearly 300 feet in diameter, more complex and intricate than anything seen before. Local news broke the story before dawn, describing a fractal-like pattern woven into the barley fields outside Sindelfingen, just southwest of Stuttgart. Drone images showed concentric hexagonal rings, latticed with spirals that seemed to fold in on themselves, like a blueprint of warped space. There were no tracks, no entry points, and no heat signatures suggesting human presence during the night. Within hours, researchers compared the coordinates to Grok's predictive map. They matched perfectly. The AI's countdown curve, the one that had been rising steadily since 2014, had reached 0. When the new data was fed into Grok, the system's behavior changed. There were no cryptic warnings this time, no poetic translations. Instead, it produced a set of coordinates: 47.5596 degrees north, 7.1180 degrees east. The team traced the numbers and froze. The point lay directly over CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, home of the Large Hadron Collider, LHC, near Geneva, Switzerland. The idea came close to being science fiction, but the calculations were still correct. In case the harmonic field was a picture of Earth's magnetic balance and the phrase, "time is collapsing," was about an observable time shift, then the Rasting message had no metaphor but was an urgent technical directive. A warning, or maybe an order, to maintain the frequencies that synchronize the very existence of reality. Grok's rendition completed just where human comprehension started. Its last implication popped up on the display again. Suggest measuring electromagnetic resonance at the coordinates of formation. It had transformed from mere curiosity to a request for action. The thermal sensors have indicated a very short time of 4.7 degrees Celsius increase in ground temperature around the pattern, as if the soil had been purposely heated with energy. Researchers were taken by surprise with these readings, as they corresponded to the same electromagnetic spike that had been detected before Rasting, but was separated by exactly 11 years and 21 days. Only a person or an entity could have been asking the question, or cutting human physics advances with the events. The Stuttgart formation seemed to be saying yes. If the 2014 circle was the warning, this one was the response linking the Earth's magnetic harmonics to humanity's experiments with time itself. Grok's note after the analysis was very short, almost like in a hospital. Resonance synchronization attained, waiting for stabilization event. That phrase shocked the group. Was this then the proof that the harmonic field had been retuned, or the sign that something of much greater magnitude still was to come? And that's the story. Strange, fascinating, and still leaving everyone guessing. What do you think really happened? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. And while you're here, check out the next video on your screen. Trust me, you'll want to see where this mystery leads next.